Sri Das Thakur was the disciple of Sri Narahari Sarkar Thakur Chaitanya Mangala, which tells many pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, not revealed by Vrindavan Das Thakur or Krishna Das Kaviraj. Being a talented musician, Lochan Das told Mahaprabhu's pastimes in beautiful poetry filled with fire and understand the of Sri Chaitanya and awakening their religious feelings. Srila Prabhupada was very fond of his bhajans. Can anyone mention one bhajan of Lochan Das Thakur? Paramakaruna one, right? Yeah, it's become familiar with these bhajans because they're, Prabhupada says, are revealed Vedic literatures. Lochan Das Thakur ki jai. So our family business, it's a good title for this book. It's gone as a spiritual family. Prabhupada also said to one of his disciples, he says, just like we have ISKCON here, we all have our ISKCON in the spiritual world. And Prabhupada's the head of that family. Okay, the power of showing up. Economists refer to money as dollar votes because people spend their money of they value most. Every dollar spent, they say, is a vote for what a customer values most. Just see how the government is, what they value. Similarly, showing up for one's daily sadhana is a devotee's deliberate vote for Krishna over illusion. Those who vote by showing up, therefore, need not say much. And since in any relationship, consistency and reliability nurture faith, our consistency in showing up for our daily practice builds Krishna's faith in us and ours in him. So just keep thinking, getting up early in the morning, the struggle, is it worth it? Then every time you show up, you're voting for Krishna. Krishna sees that vote. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 5, entitled Prahlad, the saintly son of Hiranyakashipu. Text number 16. Haniyatam Are Vetram Asmakam. Sorry, Haniyatam Are Vetram Asmakam Ayashaskara. Asmakam Ayashaskara. Kalangarasya Durbudesh. Kulangarasya Durbudesh. Chaturto Ashodito Dhamma. Chaturto Shodito Dhamma. Aniyatam Arivetram Asmakam Ayashaskara Kalangarasya Durbudesh. Chaturto Shodito Dhamma. Aniyatam Arivetram Asmakam Ayashaskara Kalangarasya Durbudesh. Chaturto Shodito Dhamma. Aniyatam Arivetram Asmakam Ayashaskara Kulangarasya Durbudesh. Chaturto Shodito Dhamma. Please chant. Anitam, let it be brought. I, O Vetram, the stick, as Makam of us, Harishaskara, who is bringing defamation, Kula Angarasya, of he who is like a cinder in the dynasty, Durbudi, having bad intelligence, Chaturta, the fourth, Asya, for him, Udita, declared, Dhamma, punishment, the stick, argumentum ad baculum. Translation, oh, please bring me a stick. Is damaging our name and fame because of his bad intelligence. He has become like a cinder in the dynasty of the demons. Now he needs to be treated by the fourth of the four kinds of political diplomacy. Please repeat, oh, please bring me a stick. This Prahlad is damaging our name and fame because of his bad intelligence. He has become like a cinder in the dynasty of the demons. Now he needs to be treated by the fourth of the four kinds of political diplomacy. Prabhupada's purport. In political affairs, when a person disobediently agitates against the government, four principles are used to suppress him: legal orders, pacification, the offer of a post, or finally, weapons. When there are no other arguments, he's punished. In logic, this is called argumentum ad baculum. When the two seminal Brahmanas, Sanda and Amarka, failed to extract from Prahlad Maharaj the cause for his having opinions different from those of his father, they called for a stick with which to chastise him to satisfy their master, Hiranyakashipu. Because Prahlad had become a devotee, they considered him to be contaminated by bad intelligence and to be the worst descendant in the family of demons. As it is said, where ignorance is bliss, it is folly to be wise. In a society or family in which everyone is a demon, for someone to become a Vaishnava is certainly folly. Thus, Prahlad Maharaj was charged with bad intelligence because he was among demons, including his teachers, who were supposedly Brahmins. Members of our Krishna consciousness movement are in a position similar to that of Prahlad Maharaj. All over the world, 99% of the world are godless demons. And therefore, our preaching of Krishna consciousness, following in the footsteps of Prahlad Maharaj, is always hampered by many impediments. Because of their fault of being devotees, the American boys who have sacrificed everything for preaching Krishna consciousness are charged with being members of the CIA. Moreover, the seminal Brahmins in India, who say that one can become a Brahmin only if born in a Brahmin family, charge us with ruining the Hindu system of religion. Of course, the fact is that one becomes a Brahmin by qualification. Because we are training Europeans and Americans to become qualified and awarding them Brahminical status, we are being charged with destroying the Hindu religion. Nonetheless, confronting all kinds of difficulties, we must spread the Krishna conscious movement with great determination, like that of Prahlad Maharaj. In spite of being the son of the demon Hiranyakashipu, Prahlad never feared the chastisements of the seminal Brahmin sons of a demoniac father. Om Ganatamarandasya Ganjana Salakaya Chakshun Litamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Makam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Lagate Grimya Kripatamaham Vande Shri Grim Dinitaranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vastadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Oh, please bring me a stick. This Prahlad is damaging our name and fame. Because of his bad intelligence, he has become like a cinder in the dynasty of the demons. Now he needs to be treated by the fourth of the four kinds of political diplomacy. So perhaps we've heard of the rod of chastisement. So this is considered when all else fails, then use the stick. Of course, in Kali Yuga, we don't do that. Could you imagine, if the spiritual master pulls a stick out, or has his dasa and he whacks a disciple? There'd be a court case for that. Or if the temple president, carried a little truncheon around with him, haven't cleaned those plates properly, you could get a bit trigger happy. When we were brought up in school, then I'm not sure about Jayanda, him and I are a bit older, but we used to have some form of corporal punishment. I bet you some of the teachers wish it was capital punishment sometimes, though. So corporal punishment means like physical punishment. If you were late for school, or you didn't do your homework, or you spoke in class. And some of them, they're so trigger happy, it's like they're almost hoping that somebody's going to do something. Okay, come out, get a strap, and they had these belts, thick leather. And some of them were quite sadistic, the teachers. They would like glue two belts together and do various things to make it, I was thinking, I wonder if these guys only became a teacher just so that they could punish the kids. It just seems like that's where they get their rasa from. That's where they get their taste. So that wasn't their last resort, that was the first resort. So therefore the teachers were hated by the kids. And sometimes the kids even rebel. But, so there was no kind of with many teachers, there was no nice rapport there. What kind of punishment did you use at school with you? Don't know. Did you ever get the strap or the cane? No. Must have been a civilized school you went to. Huh? Yeah, certainly. Yeah, it was interesting. And some of it actually, I mean, some of the kids probably loved it, and that was the way it was in those days. They would like take it to the max, especially if the teacher was a bit soft. Then that teacher would get taken advantage of in ways where you would just like misbehave. And if they weren't very good at giving the strap, then sometimes the kids would do something purposely, just go out and get the strap and pretend it was really painful. But sometimes the teachers would get wise to this and they'd send them to someone else. And then they would behave. So this is just like, we in the material world, sometimes we think, oh, I can take the reaction for this, I'm all right. I'll do this and I'll take my punishment. But the laws of material nature are so stringent, they will exactly give the punishment we require. We won't be able to escape the punishment in some way. And what does it say? If you're man enough to do the crime, then you should be man enough to do the time. Is that right? Something like that. So when the reactions come, we're thinking, oh, why am I having to suffer? Why was I have to suffer this pain in my body or this discomfort or troubled mind? What did I ever do to deserve this? Yeah, it's a good question. What did you do? Did something that didn't come because it wasn't meant for you. It's not like, yeah, I made a mistake. It was like how it's meant to get that reaction. The laws of material nature are exact. Otherwise, Krishna would not be the supreme controller. So Krishna is try to sometimes project ourselves think the world revolves around us, and we think that others think like us too. This is called Atmanam Daryate Jagat, or sometimes Atmavan Manyate Jagat. So does anybody know what this means? This Sanskrit verse. Yeah. So just like, say someone is wearing a certain type of glasses, they might think that everybody is seen like that. Or if they have a certain outlook, like Prabhupada gives an example, that a thief is always looking over his shoulder, he's thinking, when is someone going to steal from me? Because he's thinking that everyone else is a thief. Or a blind person, they can't conceive what it means to see, so they don't know how others can see. But the fact of the matter is, we all have our unique conditioning, and even apart from that, we have our own unique personality, even in our liberated state. And therefore, there's different rasas, because the living entity can engage in a unique relationship with the Lord. Not that, of course, there's only 5 and that's it, and you slot into one of them, and just like a job description, and there's no freedom to move. We all actually have our own unique personality. Even Krishna and Balaram, Gora and Nitai, one and the same, but totally different. This is our philosophy. Achintya Beda, Beda Tattva. Achintya, inconceivably, Beda Beda, one and the same, but different. Tattva, this is the highest truth. Highest truth because the other concepts of the soul, the other concepts of the Supreme Lord that we are one with, so that's not a high concept of the absolute truth. That is the beginning. Brahma, Brahmatmi, Paramatmati, Bhagavan, Iti Sabjite. So the first stage of God realization is Brahman realization, where we realize that we are not this body, we are spirit soul. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. And we see, okay, that means everyone else is Brahman, and not just the humans, the trees, the insects, the birds, the beasts. They're also Brahman, and I think we're all one. Therefore, there's my brother tree, my sister bird, so we see like that related, that eternal relationship is there. And sometimes the resolve, the cause of all is to be a homogeneous mix where we all just merge back together again and become one. But that's a false conclusion. It's a faulty conclusion. So Krishna said in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Asochanam Vasochastvam Tvam Pragyavadam Subhashase Katasmcha Nanusho Pandita. Well, speaking in words, we are mourning for that which is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. Does anybody know the translation to this one? Which we just said. So the purport is, just checking to see who's awake. So the purport of this is basically that we're not the body. We are thinking we are this body, but the body is never actually alive. It just appears to be alive. Just like the glove puppet, the puppet appears to be alive when there's some hand in it, motivating it to do different things and animating it. But you take the hand away, and you think, oh, the puppet's died, but it was never alive. The body is never alive. It's a machine, yantra, made of material energy, consisting of different ingredients of material nature. We have a gross body composed of earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and mainly water. Interesting that this body can be alive when it's like 80% water or something. And we have the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and false ego. So sometimes people, they can understand we're not this body is just these material elements, organs, etc. And they have a sense of some kind of higher consciousness beyond the body. But sometimes don't even go beyond the mind. So they think they are the mind. Or sometimes they may even see a little bit more discrimination. They are the, I think, therefore I am. So they're conscious that they have some thoughts. So this is maybe a little bit more advanced than simply just the mind. But aham brahmasmi means that I'm neither the gross material body nor the subtle material body. And the subtlest of the different elements of the subtle material body is what? Mind, intelligence, and ahankara, the false ego. That we think we are the doer. Kara means to do, right? And we think we're the doer. But actually, so this is the beginning of our misidentification, forgetting that actually nothing happens with Krishna's sanction. Krishna may allow something, which means he approves of it. So therefore, everyone has freedom of will. Sometimes people blame God, saying that why God allows this, why God allows you to do the nonsense you do. Do you want me to stop you? We think it should only be this because this is my level of morality. Somebody goes beyond that, then God should stop that. Someone who's of a higher level of morality says, "So God should stop you eating meat." You know, God should stop you doing this, stop you doing that. Oh no, this is okay. So they're dictating to God. So this is Atmanam Darite Jagat. We see the world through our own false ego. We think that we are right and others are wrong. And therefore this term that Prahlad Maharaj talks about, friends and enemies, is there. So first of all, Krishna is telling Arjuna, you're not this body. You're the wise live neither for the living nor for the dead, because living and dead, same thing. The body is never alive and it never dies. And what is alive is the soul. And so the next verse says, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, none in the future shall we cease to be. So, in the purport to this one, Prabhupada explains that Krishna, having once established, so in philosophy, when you make a point, you don't go then back to the same point, you progress on to the next point. So he's already established you're not the body. So Prabhupada uses this term, conventional terms. Krishna is now not going back to speaking conventional terms, meaning the bodily is considered conventional term. He's already established where spirit souls were not the body. Not only that, but eternal individuals. Never was a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings. He didn't say, never was there a time when we were not all one. If that's what he wanted to say, he would have said that. It's not that Krishna doesn't know what you're talking about. People misinterpret it. They say, yeah, what he means is by this. And then Krishna says, oh, sorry, yeah, that's good. Thanks for explaining that. I didn't know what I was talking about. Let them speak their own Bhagavad Gita, or their Mudha Gita, more like foolish. And Mudha means foolish person, an ass-like person. Like Prabhupada says, because the fame of Bhagavad Gita is there, then unscrupulous people use Bhagavad Gita to speak their own philosophy, so let them write their own book. And what did they do? They simply create confusion. And I have experienced this. I was asked to give a talk from Bhagavad Gita at a yoga class. It was a culmination of a yoga teacher training course. And the Gita they had been looking at was some Mayavadi interpretation of it. And they wrote some questions and sent them to me before the class so that I could be prepared to answer them. And I realized that them reading this so-called Bhagavad Gita was actually creating confusion, was actually having the opposite effect. It wasn't causing enlightenment or knowledge, it was creating confusion and more likely to put people off. So when I arrived for the class, I said, pretty much I said, you can put that Gita away because I can only speak from Bhagavad Gita as it is, because that is the succession which I come from. I can't speak from this. And then I explained that this is Bhagavad Gita as it is because it is unchanged. And I said, I can see the reason your questions are there because this has created confusion. It just so happened the teacher trainer sponsored Prabhupada's Gita for everyone as well, so we were able to give them Prabhupada's Gita. And then when we spoke according to their questions from Prabhupada's Gita, then they were like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, oh yeah, I can see how that works. So they were thinking, how can you become a yogi? How can you become a devotee when you've got to renounce everything and live in the forest? You know, I've got my kids to look after. Who's going to get them ready for school in the morning? Well, I'm living in the woods down the road. They were thinking it was so impractical, and it is a fact. This so-called impersonal liberation philosophy is very impractical in this world. It's a good pose, though. People like it because it's kind of like pseudo profundities, and they say things like love is love is love. Oh, wow, it must be like really advanced. It doesn't mean anything, and the people know it, they're cheats. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master was known as Singaguru. He was very strong. He'd go up to these Mayavadis and he'd grab them and say, why are you cheating? Of course, we don't do that in the street because we'll get locked up pretty quick. We'll get ourselves a reputation. But they are cheating. And of course, the disciples of Prabhupada, they say, well, Prabhupada, we hear you speaking so much about these Mayavadis, you know, but we never see any Mayavadis in here. He says, no, you're the Mayavadis. Who are they? Who are these impersonalists? You are them. So therefore, Prabhupada's obeisances mantra, nirvishesha shunyavadi paschya dechatarne. Because if you look at the origin of Western philosophy and religion, you see it's rooted in impersonal conception of God. Although within the Bible there are some hints of personal conception, but they get overlooked, and they think it's also some kind of conventional thing. They don't know how to relate to it. So interesting theme here is that Prahlad Maharaj, he's been seen as an enemy, but he's actually, the devotee is always a well-wishing friend. Even sometimes a devotee, like Prabhupada, would speak strongly to his disciples. Perhaps your spiritual master or authority may speak strongly, but that doesn't mean to say that the person doesn't like you. It means that the person's trying to direct you, and perhaps we're not listening. And then finally, I remember Sri Dayananda Maharaj giving a class. He was in Bombay, and he was speaking to some Indian students, and they were very argumentative, and he didn't bring out the argumentum ad baculum. Argumentum ad baculum means the stick. He didn't bring out the stick, but he started speaking more forcefully, and they were saying, "Oh, Swamiji, why are you shouting?" He said, "I'm shouting because you're not listening." So, of course, there's the saying that if you have something important to say or something wise to say or true to say, then you don't have to shout it. But sometimes it does have to be. If you care for somebody and they're not listening, if someone's walking down the street and there's an uncovered manhole and they're about to walk, you don't shout, "Excuse me, sir, excuse me a second, do you mind just being careful as you walk down the street?" You won't even hear, you got to shout, "Watch out!" And then like, who's shouting at me? And then she'll look, "Oh, right, thanks." I remember I'd been given a leaflet on the street. I was out doing books. One Christian gave me a leaflet. It was quite interesting, actually. It was very well made. So, on the beginning of the leaflet, it showed you like one page here, and it showed you. So there's a girl here looking very terrified, and some guy had grabbed her by the back of her jacket, and he was pulling her back, and she looked terrified. And then, no, it was here actually, like that. And then, when you open it up, it showed you she's about to step onto the road in front of a bus. So when you see it at first, you think, "Oh, that looks terrible. What's happening to that poor girl?" And you realise this person is actually the well-wisher trying to save her from danger. So this is Krishna. Sometimes he's telling us something quite strong. And the first verse we spoke of there, Asochanam Asocha Swam, and Prabhupada mentions in the purport that Krishna is chastising Arjuna here. He's indirectly calling him a fool. mourning for that is what the wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. So he's telling them, you're not wise. You're not being wise here. You're being foolish. You're thinking like this, but your thinking is wrong. So this thinking, feeling, and willing, where is this? Where are these traits situated in? These are traits of the mind. Just because we think something or we feel something doesn't mean to say it's correct. Prabhupada was giving a class in New York, and one person says, I'm feeling like this, and I think that, and I feel like this, and Prabhupada says, you're feeling wrongly. You're feeling wrongly. So we may feel something, but it doesn't mean to say it's correct just because we feel it. Because what is that feeling? It means that we thought about something so much. Like sometimes you see people maybe take some argument and they take the street, maybe they protest, etc., because they get themselves all wired up. That they might later on realise, actually, I was wrong. what was behind actually was wrong, or it was wrong way of going about it, or it was just I got a bit over involved in it. So we invest so much time in our thoughts that we may really start to feel it. But what if we're wrong? If our thinking is wrong, the feeling will be wrong, and then we're willing, the action will be wrong. So this thinking and feeling and willing, it should be in accordance with the direction of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, and then it will be right. Even sometimes we may feel it might not feel right to us to begin with, but that's because we're accustomed to thinking in a certain way. So there's this Bhajan Nitai Padakamala Koti Chandra Shushitala Jaya Jagata Jurai. And later on in this bhajan, so this bhajan is talking about Lord Nityananda. He's so merciful, he gives shelter, which is more soothing than Koti Chandra Shushitala, millions of moons. So especially if you're in a hot country and then there's a full moon comes out at night, then everybody feels relief from the cooling rays of the moon. This is the nature of the moon, it causes cooling. So the fire of material life, samsara davanali diloka, this davanala, the blazing fire of material existence, then by the mercy of the spiritual master, by the mercy of Lord Nityananda, then this blazing fire can be extinguished. But it means that we have this bhajan nitai parakamala is called mana shiksha, instructions to the mind. So we have to, by following instructions coming from these great authorities, then gradually the fire of material desire starts to diminish and we experience relief. We mistakenly think that we get relief by putting fuel on the fire. So when it's fire and you put some oil on, the oil sometimes it douses the fire a bit, but when it catches it blazes even more. And this is what happens with us. We think, okay, if I just fulfill this desire, then it'll shut up, it'll leave me alone. And this was some bogus philosophy that some bogus personalities should propagate, was enjoy your senses to the max and burn them out, and then you can become renounced. But it doesn't matter how much fuel you put in the fire, it never goes out. Of course, that analogies are faulty. You could say, well, if you put enough oil in the fire, it would go out. You could always find fault with the analogy, but it's to make a point, really, isn't it? So as long as we keep on putting fuel in the fire, it just keeps on going. So the thing is to stop putting fuel in the fire and fuel up a different fire. So Lord Nityananda in that bhajan, he says that an animal can be tamed. Sometimes you'll see in India, you see people they have tamed snakes. They have the snake charmers and they play their shanai, and it works. Or they play a flute. You've seen it. At Govardhan, there's a beautiful lake, Kusum Sarovar, and I've seen one young man playing the flute. I was going to the Goshal to get some dood, some milk, not some guy. Milk is called dood. All right, dood. This is grum dood means hot milk. So this is It was a daily duty I had. It was really nectar because they'd give me this little tin pail with a lid on it, and I'd go across Christmas Rover around the back and go to the goshaw and get it filled up with milk every day, fresh milk straight from the cow. On the way there once, I seen this young man playing a flute, and he stopped and he pointed, and there was two snakes swimming across this rover. I was thinking, I've just been swimming in there. He says the snakes love the sound of the flute. Apparently they don't have ears, they don't hear, but they actually feel the vibration. So when he was playing this melody, the snakes were swimming across toward him, two of them. And he says, but also there's another melody you can play to repel them. So he played a different melody, and then they went back to where they came from. Seen it right before my eyes. I thought, wow, this is amazing. And apparently there is a village of snake charmers in that vicinity, because Peterji, the old man who was Pujari at Christmas Rover for 60 years, he got bitten by a snake, and he was, to all evidences, it seemed that he died. But some snake charming buds came, and they touched some mantras, and then the black stuff started coming out of his orifices, and then he regained consciousness again. Yeah, we see that one time also was there. I was just at Govardhan town, and I was taking darshan. There's a huge big Govardhan Shila there, and I heard his voice behind me going, "Cobra darshan, egg rupee," which means I'll let you see a cobra for 1 rupee. It was some little schoolboy, probably dodging school. So I pulled I turned around, and there was this cobra right like this, right at my face. It was like, that happened to me a couple of times actually. I thought this must be the guy's party trick. But it was interesting because they were able to control even a snake, which is generally considered, you want to see a snake, you stay well away from it, especially a poisonous snake. You stay well away from it. But by mantras, by sound vibration, they could control the snake. And in this purport, it's mentioned that even a tiger can be tamed. But it says a human being, say Pashu Boro Durachar, a human being, sometimes because they've got intelligence, even they cannot be tamed, whereas wild animals and snakes can be tamed. So it's therefore it's something we have to willingly do. We have to willingly. This devotional service is known as a willing process. So when we're engaging it willingly, then the mind can be tamed. So in terms of friends and enemies, has anyone ever had a friend who became an enemy? Or an enemy who became a friend? Happens, doesn't it? Remember on the street, I used to do book distribution up at Edinburgh Castle on the Royal Mile. There was this guy who used to play the Braveheart part. He used to kind of dress up with all the gear and played the part of Braveheart William Wallace. It was just his thing to kind of busk from the tourists. And he was quite nasty with us. Every time we'd go by, he'd say something nasty. And then when it represented God, stuff like that. So, and then he became a great friend and protector of the devotees. So sometimes that happens, people who are inimical, they become friends of the devotees, and they even make up for it by thinking it'd be so bad, then, anybody gets you in trouble, just let me know, I'll come and sort it out. So this friends and enemies things, which Prahlad Maharaj is talking about, this is changeable. Someone's our friend one day, the enemy the next day. Someone's enemy one day, they become a friend. So devotee, we try to see through that and think that friends and enemy, what makes an enemy? If everyone is a friend, because we try to see everything in relation from Krishna. Krishna is giving us a lesson. and we term them as enemies simply for in terms of what is pleasing to our mind and senses. But of course, for preaching purposes, we do have to discriminate between devotees and non-devotees. Otherwise, we'll think, well, everyone's a devotee, I don't have to preach. They're all eternal associates. But that's imitating, job done, get the prasadam out. That's imitating the highest platform, ultimate adhikari, where he sees everyone as a devotee. What's the problem? Everybody's engaged according to their desire, and Krishna's given them a path. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, everyone follows my path in all respects. So that means one who's following the path of going back to Godhead or the path of going to hell, there's all different paths Krishna's arranged, and they're all following these paths. What's the problem? They don't see that, and they see the soul never suffers, the soul never dies. So, therefore, they say that in order to preach, Uttama Adhikari has to come to the platform of Majjhima Adhikari. Doesn't mean his consciousness is less. It means that he's consciously decided to discriminate for the purpose of reclaiming the fallen souls again. So that's we can't automatically pretend that we're on that platform. Nobody needs preaching. I've heard it in the books. It says that everyone's eternal spirit soul. Nobody suffers. So what's the problem? Don't bother preaching. If that's the case, we would be out there as well, and we'd be suffering. And someone say, "Well, you don't need to be saved. Your eternal spirit soul, just suffer because you're not suffering anyway." It's okay to say that, but do we realise that when we're suffering, we don't realise it? We're conscious of our suffering. So, because Prahlad Maharaj was automatically attracted to Vishnu, in the previous verse, it was saying that the iron filings are automatically attracted to a magnet. Sometimes, as a child, you'd have fun with a magnet, and we see automatically it's attracted to the magnet. So automatically, then the devotees are attracted to Vishnu. It's their nature. So even though he's in the association of demons, then his automatic attraction is to Vishnu. He didn't have to be told about this. He'd already, he was on that platform where he was already automatically attracted to Vishnu eternally. It's not that he died in previous life and he had to learn it all again. So this is like proof that whatever advancement we make in our previous life, we carry to the next life. It's not lost. It's not that he had to learn all his slokas again or learn all the principles of devotional service. He already carried that. And because the demons seen this as opposing his father's will, then they considered Prahlad Maharaj an enemy, although Prahlad Maharaj didn't see them as enemies. So sometimes people may see the devotees as enemies, but we don't have to see them as enemies. We can see them as being inimical, but we don't have to see them as personal enemies. And then otherwise we cannot discriminate if we don't see that there are living entities that are inimical. So therefore we have to consider this 8th offence against the holy name, isn't it? No. Preaching the glories of the holy name to faithful or atheistic person, 9th offence, yeah. Because sometimes we get fired up and we're speaking to someone who's not really that interested. So how do we want to find out if they're interested? Yeah, we also question them. Yeah, so what kind of questions are they asking? Or if they're not asking questions, we ask them questions to find out, what is their interest. And if their interest is not very much, then we can't give them very much. Like Jesus Christ says, don't cast pearls before swine. If you put some pearls before a pig, then you put a plate of pearls and a plate of stool, which one's it going to go to? It's not going to say, oh, those pearls are very valuable. I could take them to the market and buy loads of stool. It doesn't reason, it just automatically goes to the filth. it doesn't realise the value of pearls. So when we speak certain philosophers speak Krishna's pastimes, as someone who doesn't realise the value of that, they not only would they not appreciate it, but they may commit some offence. So therefore, we have to be careful what we put in front of people. So then, there's a term called Desha Kalapatra. Does anybody know what this means? Desha Kalapatra. Yep. Sometimes Prabhupada translates it as time, place, and candidate. Yep, exactly. Candidate, person. So sometimes it's related to the situation we're in, the surroundings, the time and place, etc. Country. It's like some countries, they want to bring their own laws into this country, but that's not the laws of this land. You know, if they don't like the laws of this land, then perhaps they should stay in a country where they do like the laws of the land. Like some people come to this country because they like the laws of force people the freedom that it's got. Like I met one American man on Sankirtan years ago, and he came out reading the newspaper, and I was trying to tell him Gita, and I said to him, "You don't believe everything in the newspaper, do you? You don't believe everything you read?" He says, "It's a lot more believable than what I found in the States." So he was finding, even though we're a bit cynical of what we read in newspapers, he was actually a lot less cynical because he found it was closer to the truth. So yeah, time, place, and candidate also are set to Shakilapatra. Desh means place, like Bangladesh, Bangladesh. These means place. Just like Stan, this word Stan is also a Sanskrit word. Kazakhstan, Afghanistan, Sanskrit word. It also means place. Rajasthan. And Kala means time, the times that we're living in. We may have to present the same message, but it may be according to the different times and circumstances we're in just now. And then candidate, so we don't give the same message to everybody. It's like the doctor, although sometimes it is these days, you know, he's got about 3 medicines. You go there and you get one or the other. What's wrong with okay, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, you can have this one. But I've tried it doesn't work. We'll try it again. Or try this one. You know, so I was going to say, one man's food, another man's poison. So it's not every medicine which will help every person. They don't understand the different bodily constitution. In Ayurveda, there's 3 different constitutions, Kapha, Vata, and Pitta, and there are combinations of those as well. So without understanding the particular body type one has, then you wouldn't know what is the right medicine to give. So similarly, if we're saying something to somebody, it might not be that they say, and it worked for somebody. It doesn't mean to say that we say the same thing to another person and another person, because different persons, it might not work. It might actually make them less favourable. I'm seeing Prabhupada example, he would speak with people and he'd find out about them and he'd know exactly what to say to them, which would be relevant. So when we're sharing Krishna consciousness with people, we have to find out a bit about them. And that, of course, has another aspect, positive aspect, is that people then think, well, this person's interested, they care about me, they're asking about me, where are you from, what do you do, what, you know, this, that, the next thing. And then you get a little picture, you think, okay, how did you come to Krishna consciousness? Have you read any of the books? Was there anything there that particularly caught your attention? And you see, this is what means something to this person. And then, so when we're reading these books regularly, then we're acquiring so much knowledge so that we can just, in the encyclopedia of our mind, or library of our mind, we just pull out something which is relevant. If I say something relevant, if it's irrelevant, then it won't click, and the people think, oh, it doesn't really apply to me, this Krishna consciousness. But it does, we just have to try to find a way to get through. So, just to finally say here is that Prabhupada says the members of the Krishna conscious movement are in positions similar to Prahlad Maharaj. So all over the world, 99% of people are godless. So even I experienced in the West, it's not so much nowadays, although you will still get out on the street, you get some rejection. So I was experienced that very much in the early days preaching in Scotland, rejection, and then even going to India, we were getting rejection because here you're bringing a different culture, different religion. People don't want to know about it, they don't like change. And then there, you're like a white guy, what are you doing? White guy, pretending to be a Brahmin. They don't like it. So, of course, it's not everyone's like that. There's a growing number of people, both in the West and in India, who are accepting Western Vaishnavas. But this is also Krishna's mercy that we don't then identify with some temporary identification. We don't identify as East or West, but we're having to identify as a devotee, depending on Krishna. And regardless of whatever criticism is hurled at us, then we carry on this, as Prabhupada says in Chaitanya Charitamrita. The devotees of the Krishna conscious movement are sometimes criticised, but they'll carry on the responsible work. You're criticised by people who are like hogs and dogs. So, if a dog barks at you, you don't think, oh, that dog's got an opinion about me. I better kind of change my way to make it more acceptable to this dog. We don't change our character or opinion to fit in with that. We just think, barking dog, just carry on. It doesn't mean it. So this is how we see it. Not that we're self-righteous, but some people will appreciate Krishna consciousness, someone. So those who appreciate it, we give the time to them. And those who don't, we can try. But if our trying is not really getting anywhere, we have to see, okay, well, they're not ready for it. Let's try to find someone who is more inclined toward it. And there are people out there, just like we were out there wondering what it's all about. There are people out there, and Krishna will send them to us. Krishna will make arrangements. Krishna makes so many arrangements for us. So we'll just stop there. Anyone get any comment or questions?
To share, Prabhu, and the question as well. So thought is like born and raised in India, in schooling in India at the time, like punishment was normal, and if it was required, due and all. But now, last year, a friend from India, he was mentioning, he saying, the educational system is reforming very much in India, and so much so that now the powers are taken away from teachers. Hardly any powers, and so much powers given to the students and maybe the parents as well, that you cannot point a finger to any student, and you have to be very careful what you say to the student, because it will disturb his future and he may carry something on all. And now teachers are very worried. They cannot say, but students, they have more power. They can tell the teacher, oh, you are not teaching fine. The parents can come and tell the teachers, you are not teaching my son fine. So it's like moving towards another end of the pendulum.
Yes, so this is creates an imbalance. Sometimes the teachers maybe overuse their authority or they misuse their authority, then the pendulum swing the other way where they get rejected, and then the power they have to do good and create some stability, because there has to be some kind of discipline. Child, the word child, what does it mean if you look at the dictionary? Basically means like it was consecutive 20 times if they called an a child, and they were actually wanton, they were unruly, they were undisciplined. It was an insult. You're just a child. It wasn't so a child has to become adult, and that means there has to be some regulations, some discipline. And discipline doesn't necessarily mean just beating them and giving them a hard time and abusing that authority. So this is what's happened. This is going to the other extent where I come to the point where they want to be because the teachers get abused, because this is the nature of children too. I don't know about you well-behaved people, but when we were at school, sometimes you tested to see how far you would get. It's the nature of children, isn't it? The parents, you see them, they're playing up, they want to see what they get away with, testing their boundaries. But if the boundaries are unbounded, then it's going to create chaos. It's another sign of Kali Yuga. So there needs some balance in there. Yes, in question.
Yeah, question. So a friend usually, she messaged me asking this question and wanted to ask, like, so she's going to soon start her masters, and she goes to temple, is practicing consciousness, doing rounds and reading Prabhupada Linamrit and doing some services in temple. And she was asking, like, now that practicing consciousness, how to strike the balance between studies, practice of Krishna consciousness, especially living in the home with parents who are not so Krishna conscious for now, or friends and family, go to university, fosters, choosing her friend circle as well, say.
Okay, so we have to be very practical. This is a good example of Vaishya Kalapatra. So in terms of creating a balance, then regulation is very important. So give the proper time to the studies, give a certain specific time to Krishna consciousness, like reading and chanting, and have that time every day, so that you just keep that Krishna consciousness there. And regarding the parents, then sometimes it's wise to say that it's a wise person who who knows when to lose an argument to a person with a sick mind. So sometimes you have to just lose the battle to win the war. So sometimes we just have to let the parents think that we are just what they all make it easy for them. Don't have any drastic changes in front of them, but at the same time uphold your Krishna conscious principles. So maybe don't preach to your parents, because they know you since day one. They just think you're my kid. What can you tell me? So just be kind to your parents. Don't stress them out too much by being too radical in the house. And just practice your own Krishna consciousness, which will improve your character. And in due course, the parents will be pleased anyway. They think, oh, my son and my daughter, they've become a nice person. They're in a good environment. Because we'll also begin to see that so many of the other kids around about are getting involved in things which are troublesome. She give proper to different things. If she gives the type of studies and she does well with that, the parents will be happy. They won't think that Krishna consciousness is a threat. And at the same time, have definite times for practicing Krishna consciousness. And just kind of just be friendly and don't preach to the parents, that kind of thing. Is that okay?
Jai.